it was kind of just an accident that the land that we happened to buy for my son's farm also ended up being just filled with oaks. I'm really, really happy that we ended up here. One thing I've noticed over the years, particularly, is the decline of habitats and the decline of how many birds there are around. And so I've always been motivated to try to create spaces or restore spaces that can lead to more birds. And I've gotten interested recently in native pollinators, so I'm also thinking about what can I do to create spaces where they can thrive. I don't really have any ulterior motive for why I'm doing it. It's just love. I've been working with Soil and Water Conservation District and NRCS for 5 years. That's been absolutely wonderful because I've learned so much. And you know, as you age, you're supposed to keep learning new things, and I have definitely been learning new things.
One of the great things about Joe's property is the scale. So we have a really large property. You have these clustered oak woodlands here, and you have a mix of generations. So we have older oaks like the one behind me, some maturing oak and some baby oaks. So we have a whole range of generations growing in this space. It's a really unique ecosystem that we only have in this area, and the oaks are kind of the keystone of that. So trying to conserve them is really important. And this is part of an oak habitat restoration that's involved some additional planting of oak associates and some work on managing invasives in the understory and kind of reintroducing more oak habitat, conserving the oaks that are here and the new generation of them. So just helping Joe achieve those goals.
There are places on the land where the Christmas trees that were planted in the 1970s are now very large Douglas fir trees, meaning over 100 feet tall. And under the Christmas trees, particularly the ones that they never harvested, they just left them sitting and that got kind of weedy, and it ended up being a wonderful place for jays and squirrels to stash acorns. And so underneath these Christmas trees, there's oaks that have been growing in some cases for 50 years. In that one particular grove I'm thinking about, the Douglas firs now are 100 feet tall, the oaks are 50 feet tall, and oaks hate shade. And so the Douglas firs are now in a position where they're harming the oaks by stealing their light.
So the thinning work that's being done here is because we have oaks on site that have become crowded by Douglas fir that's grown in too close to them. There's also some areas where the fir that was in there is not in the best place. The soils are a little too wet, so it's dying out. The oak will be doing fine with that, so we're going to help encourage that a little bit. And the work that Joe, his son, and some of the contracted help will help really improve that space, and those oaks will thrive.
And particularly since these oaks are already 50 years old, they're like young adults, which means they've got several hundred years to thrive if we can just get the habitat right. Blackberries were a problem with the oak grove where there's enough light getting through for them to grow, and they create a thicket and shade out everything else that might grow on the floor of the oak woods.
It's important to clear out invasive species through brush management. Things like the Himalayan blackberry over here are a real problem. They are like the bad roommates that are really annoying. They take up all the space, they drink all the water, they just are a nuisance. And so when you evict the bad neighbor, when you take out the things like the blackberry or the invasive species, you're allowing the native plants to come back in, for the oaks to be released and be able to stretch out their limbs. You're just creating a better neighborhood.
The shelter belt, where it is right now, 1,500 feet long, I believe, was basically one huge brush patch. Blackberries and Scotch broom, it was a mess. So it took a lot of clearing, and they paid for a lot of that. The shelter belt it's kind of an archaic term. It's from the 1930s, but it's basically a long strip of brush and trees that I'm creating. They're all just babies right now, but it's designed to create more habitat, also to connect woods that already exist.
Shelter belt is a piece that can be used a lot in soil conservation. You kind of have a windbreak. If you're regulating water flow, you have this vegetated space in there that you can make some decisions about the placement on that. And then in addition, we've planted it with native species, so it's a habitat space with it. And as we saw today, we get a lot of pollinators in that area. You can see the browsing that's happening. There's a lot of species coming in. So it's serving a utilitarian function on the landscape for human needs, but it's also serving a habitat function for the ecosystem.
When you're reducing the number of invasive species and allowing that diversity of native species to come back in. You're going to see birds that you hadn't seen before, pollinators that you hadn't seen before, and also the diversity underneath the ground in the soil. You know, you're getting more diversity of the different kinds of roots that are shallow rooted, deep rooted, all the soil microorganisms that are coming back.
It's been amazing to see the changes in the bird life and to a lesser extent pollinator life on the farm. Bluebirds are nesting here the last 2 years and they never nested here before. And lazuli buntings are nesting here and they didn't nest here before.
That's the part that's always the most rewarding for me, because you spend time visiting a landscape, drafting a plan, trying to come up with designs and decisions of what you want to do, and it's a lot of work and labor to implement that. So when you see things come together, that's really rewarding.
It's really helpful to have partners. I think we do better in community, just like animals and plants do better in community. And NRCS and Soil and Water Conservation District have basically been part of my community.
Both with NRCS's funding and the district's funding, these are resources that are coming from the public. They're coming through various tax revenue streams. And so being good stewards of that, we want to be thinking about how are we applying that back onto the landscape, and how is that working in a way that you could say is for the greater good of the community. You know, the work that's being done here is not just for Joe's farm and his family. This is something that is sustaining a landscape and an ecosystem that's important to the whole community and area and future generations. You're not just spending money, you're making an investment.